Hello my lovelies, welcome to the channel. If you follow me on Instagram then you've probably found me through that, so welcome. I'm glad for you to kind of join me on this journey through YouTube now. And I also like to thank my sister for doing the artwork for this channel. I really appreciate it, so thank you very much. So for quite a little bit of time I was wondering on how to start this channel off, and it's been quite tricky because it's like there's a lot of things that can be quite controversial and quite hard topics to begin with. I could do journeys of my life, but it's not really that a major deal to some people, especially when you're a small channel. You want to kind of like build up, I think. So I kind of want to talk about dysphoria itself. So dysphoria is a bit of a mental issue, basically, that your mind or brain is mismatched with the body that you're in, and that basically can lead to anxiety, depression and harmful situations such as suicide and self-harming, which, you know, when you think about it to certain degrees, that some people are very restricted in what they can and can't do because of their surroundings of family, friends or just culture. So it's a very big issue for some people, and I'm very lucky to have such supportive background, but it's something I do want to go into a bit more detail because some people just sort of like shoo it off, and it's not as easy as that. Some people really do struggle. I really have massive dysphoria with my face and height, as well as my voice and just everything else, but my face is one of my biggest issues at the moment. And has led me into some depression. But at the end of the day, you still have to kind of fight through it and just hope for the best that it kind of builds up over time. So to alleviate gender dysphoria, some people go on to medical transition, and that is the route I went through, or am still going through, should I say. And right now, I feel a lot more better for it, but I still suffer from dysphoria with certain issues, like I said, because of my face shape. My voice is another thing that I was very dysphoric about, although because I've been trying to train it, it feels a little better, although I still feel it needs a lot more work, but that's another story for another day. But taking this medical route is just to alleviate the feeling of gender dysphoria, and help me build up towards that gender identity, not to be confused with actual gender. Biological gender is either male or female. There's no fighting against it. You can't do anything about it. Gender identity, identify as whatever you like, but don't claim that gender identity and biological sex are two of the same. They aren't, because you can't argue the biological science behind it. You either are born male or female, but in the general sense of things, male and female is all there is, and there is nothing we can do about that. But gender identity, identify however you feel. That is your right and your freedom, but it's just a little more difficult because some people do struggle to understand why you identify in that way. And that's, I mean, I can't say why some people would identify as a particular animal, for example, because I don't have that feeling. I can relate in the sense of transgender feelings and dysphoric feelings with my own gender, but I can appreciate that people do feel certain ways in certain situations, and that they do feel some sort of dysphoric feeling, but in a like a trans species sort of way, I guess. But it's a whole can of worms as a whole, really, because that sort of area is not kind of what I want to cover. Is about gender dysphoria itself. So regarding the struggles with gender dysphoria and identifying as that gender, another thing is that people seem to believe that it's just something that we do by choice. This isn't quite as true as it is. Some people feel like it's like we just do it for fun. I remember at one point that I went to a pub, and there was one person who basically thought it was wrong of me to dress up the way I did and go to a particular pub in that way. But they didn't say it to me directly, they said it to someone else who happened to be my grandparent. So it's funny how some people like to say things behind your own back, so unfortunately you kind of have to deal with it. The issue is that gender dysphoria affects the way you identify, and when you're trying to identify as a female but you are born male, you're going to go through that process where people are going to categorize you wrongly, and you can't blame them, if you know what I mean. You can't be upset with people who do that. As much as like you want to identify as that person, sometimes you might appear male enough or female enough in whichever way you're trying to go that it isn't obvious enough for them to identify you correctly. Personally, I've never wanted to correct people in that sort of way because it kind of told me that I still need to work at myself. I still think I need to work at myself. I don't feel like I look female enough to kind of pass as a woman. And that sort of gives me the strive forward to keep pushing through and keep improving who I want to be as a person, because of those like mismatched identifications that people make on me. When they say he, buddy, pal, mate, it's just not the female terms that I would, well, they're not female terms at all, but it's not the terms I'd like to be expressed as by other people, but it still gives me an idea of how I'm progressing and how far I'm coming. But I think the main thing about being identified wrongly is just not to get too worked up about it, because at the end of the day, no one is psychic. They're not going to know exactly what you're trying to be, because for all they know, they could think that I'm a trans man. And that's kind of weird to think in a way, because I was born male anyway, but they don't know that. They might even see me as androgynous, and that's the thing, is that they don't know. But me personally, I've always kind of never felt the need to try and correct people and push people to state the pronouns that I'd rather identify as to random strangers, especially when I'm working, for example. But there have been occasions where I have been addressed as female, and those are the moments that make me feel like I'm getting somewhere. And there was this one time where a little girl who talked to her parents and addressed me in female pronouns, and it just made me smile so much. But at the end of the day, gender dysphoria, I feel, is a mental illness at the end of the day, because it is in my mind that I do feel female, but my body didn't turn out that way. And the issue is also that the more you transition, there still are things that you can still feel gender dysphoric about and still feel really trapped no matter how far you transition. You know, you got to kind of deal with it as much as possible and try to alleviate that problem as much as possible. But I guess what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, is that if you struggle with gender dysphoria, then there are people out there who struggle. There are people who also are trapped because they can't do anything about it. There are people who will mispronounce who you are, but try not to get too worked up about it, because at the end of the day, people don't know sometimes, and some people are just ignorant because they just don't care. But I think I'd rather people didn't care over hating on me. It was really tricky to even pick a topic for a first video for this channel, and I hope I haven't upset too many people, because I know there's probably going to be some people who really are upset with what my opinions are. At the end of the day, they are just opinions, but you're entitled to have your own opinions as well. Anyway, I've been Rebecca Markelf, and I shall see you soon.